Every time I experience conflict in my life, I know that that is a direct reflection of something that I'm battling in here. And so, thank you. All of you people that have been attacking me lately, thank you for showing me that I am adequate. And that I am worthy, and that I am going to do big things in this world. And I will always fight for love and unity. Always. I think it's a pretty fucking cool thing to fight for. Have a beautiful night.
I was actually hopeful for a second, but I just wanted to show everybody this picture, and I think it's so important for everyone just on planet Earth to get educated on these things, but especially in a spiritual sense. It can happen a lot in the spiritual community, and when this happens in a spiritual community, it's extremely hard to see when you're deep in it. This is also what I talk about with spiritual F-boys. I want people to be able to spot these things and protect themselves. I would love to analyze this video into the absolute ground. I have so much to say about it, but I am getting blasted with mass reporting. I'm getting videos taken down like... So that's why I need to go work on my writing and a podcast and all this stuff so that I can explain it really, really well. And in the future, I will make more content not using other creators, like explaining this. This is literally like a documentary series at this point.
In any of my videos ever.
Okay, I've been reviewing this exchange, and to me, this jumps out as a major crux of this issue. And Peachara, like you, I'm genuinely trying to speak on this from a place of love. I am not trying to attack you, but I'm speaking because I feel like something unjust happened, and I do think that Natalie was harmed in this situation. Because race and gender and all these other categories of identity are a factor in how you think and what you say and how you frame things. And in the places where your identity is part of the assumed or standard category, it's a common mistake to think that ignoring the identity altogether makes you objective. So in this case, I think your experience is valid and you should have space to speak out about how you were harmed by spiritual rhetoric. But Natalie's experience is also valid. She's not here because it's her job, she's here because it's her life. So if you really don't understand where she's coming from, the first step is to listen and try to understand her perspective and not to try to educate. That taking this idea as gospel can lead to some really problematic thinking. However, it's absolutely describing a real phenomenon where there's a kind of attractive energy that is an energy of poise, and it is an energy of confidence, knowing, like, trust in the inner source, trust that you don't need to want the thing because it's already yours by divine right or something equivalent is. That level of, that kind of energy, it's not the only thing that can attract good things into your life, but certainly goddamn helps, some of us know. Also, I do think a big part of this message, and I haven't quite articulated this the way that I love yet, but there's something about, it's not that you don't know what you want, it's that sometimes you know what you want energetically, but like not how that's going to translate to material things. And so you might think, I need, for example, some sum of money that seems like it will solve your problems, when you really needed that money to pay for childcare. And instead, you end up meeting somebody who can, you know, fulfill your need for less money, whatever it is. There's a million examples of being open to what you want energetically. I think maybe that works without getting stuck to or clinging to what is the what you think will be the material manifestation. Yeah, I mean.
Where you're coming from, but how do we know there's not an even deeper root that has been stolen and ruined? Because the Yahtzees are really good at stealing things from other cultures and stealing ideas and screwing them up and then presenting them as something really disturbing and creepy that we now need to step away from. Example, there is a Hindu symbol that we now only recognize as the Yahtzee swastika, even though the symbols are actually slightly different. They're not even exactly the same, and yet you can't even go out wearing the Hindu symbol without people thinking you're a Yahtzee or a Yahtzee supporter. And when we tell people, oh, you can't believe this or you're a bad person, we're basically saying that the Yahtzees won. As in they won their bastardization of the whole concept.
Would you? Because you really can't know why a lot of people in this world would do a lot of things that they do, and when that leads to attempting to control others or to universalize pretty much anything, it's almost always like a colonizing move, right? So I do understand, like, the history of starseeds being very colonizing and very like a pipeline to the alt-right, and that's why I've actually backed off of like identifying as that myself. On the other hand, I know people who are very good people who do, and so like, why would you? First of all, they don't really owe, like, they can fully accept the consequences of saying something that strikes people as crazy, which can include like you know, people coming out and saying like, don't even call yourself that, or not understanding why would they. But also, they don't owe you an explanation of why would they. Like, there's so many perspectives in the world. There's so many combinations of unique experiences that lead people to identify as different things. And I have a lot of ideas about identity being very tied to your kind of social, political position in this world. So I think it can make a lot of sense why somebody could have a particular set of experiences that would lead them to heal by identifying in this way, or by identifying as, like, to take another example that I see on here pretty commonly, like a male lesbian, you know, a trans man who still identifies as a lesbian. And I have like pretty heated, not even heated, I have pretty like intense discussions with friends in the trans community about this, who are pretty like upset about the idea, because there is something that is like, lesbians need to be left alone in their own spaces, you know, like there is something that is necessary about having a community that is like aligning with you and that you can feel safe in, from the groups that are oppressing you. And like, if you're a trans man, you're a man. On the other hand, I'm of the take on that you have such different experiences from me, especially because in that case, that's like a racial related thing, I believe, as well. Like, I cannot speak to the experiences of a black lesbian trans man because I have never lived that life. And so there is no place for me to judge. And so I think the same thing can basically happen with any identity. And I think starseeds are no exception. You know, spirituality is not an exception. Witchery is not an exception. Christianity even, is not an exception. Like, you should talk and educate about the history, the context. You should call out the violences. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's anyone on this earth's place to control what another human being identifies as. So actually, this is the opposite of true. And let me just clarify that I don't personally identify myself as a starseed at this time. There was a time when I did, and I did find it healing. And I have moved away from it because I recognize the politics behind it, and I don't find it necessary for my healing at this time. I am also in community with many people who identify as a starseed still, and many of those people are people of color, and many of those people are autistic. And I don't think anybody in the communities that I value and the people that I think of good people as good people have any problem with acknowledging the harms that are part of the history. And no, it does not erase those harms to still identify that way. On the other hand, I actually also am autistic. And so there are a lot of people who are, and who have in fact reclaimed this word in a similar way to how people reclaim queer or crip. It has been used to harm, and so there's even, you know, generations of people that refuse to use those words as well. And then some people have come to reclaim them and to re-empower themselves through those words. I think the same thing happens with starseeds. There's a huge autistic community of starseeds. There's a lot of overlap, and a lot of us find it healing. And so actually, to try to police that identity is what is failing to acknowledge autistic individuals whose lives were healed, or not maybe healed fully, but, you know, who were helped in their path toward healing by being called a starseed. That's definitely a large swath of that community. So actually, this is the opposite of true. And let me just clarify. I've now been through several iterations of this same argument with various people, a lot of them on TikTok. And my problem with the argument that consistently comes up against me on this is that it's very reductive, because I have no problem, haven't throughout this conversation and haven't throughout the previous conversations had any problem acknowledging the harmful things, the people that have used the identity to harm, you know? Same thing with magic, same thing with manifestation, witchcraft. Like, I'm there saying, let's point out this history, let's educate about it. That does not mean, first of all, that I need to feel guilty and like take on those things as if I believe in doing it that way when I've never done it that way. And then second of all, that doesn't erase the many, many people that use these identities for healing and good. It's just true that these communities exist while also the communities that were harmed exist. And I can hear that, like, it's important to call out the education. Like, in that sense, we need to be more mindful. Not in the sense of policing identities, not in the sense of saying that means that someone should be called out for being a starseed. You compared it to calling someone out for being a Yahtzee. Those are two completely different things. Because there are stated positions with Yahtzeeism that are inherent to the identity. That's not true for starseeds, and it is erasing, communities of autistic people, of people of color, who have found healing in those terms, to just reduce it to the harms that have been done by the identity, and to say that anybody using the identity instead just needs to be more mindful. Plenty of them, plenty of us have been mindful enough, beyond mindful, and still identify in a way that may make no sense to some people, and oh well. I've now been through several iterations of this same argument with various people, a lot of them on TikTok, and so again, I don't really use the term starseed anymore because I don't find it necessary. I think some identities I kind of, do I want to say cling to? I have to think about that. I find more necessary in order to articulate my position and therefore like move in a healing direction because of it. I don't find the whole starseed thing to be like that relevant. Like, I think that something equivalent to the starseed narrative in a collective kind of a way is probably adjacent in some way, like probably reflects the truth, but whatever. So like, I guess for this particular word and for words like it, where like the history ultimately at the end of the day just kind of outweighs the benefits or the uses of it, just leave it on the floor and like move on. It would be my personal opinion, which is why I personally chose to stop using the word. Like, I think really my hard line again is really just, it is not my business what someone else's identity is. It is my business if I realize that in that person's case the identity is harming people, or if it's like that person wasn't educated and that's why they were using the identity, or if they were actually being harmed and they didn't realize. But like, to me, it just feels very invalidating of real people's real healing experiences, to say that you must lay it on the floor because I don't find it, I don't find that balance to go in the favor of continuing to use it. And yeah, I mean, that's what I'm stuck on, because the same thing happens with like all of these terms, many of which, I know that we both use for ourselves, like magic, manifestation, witchcraft. Like, I really think a lot of, and even like I know of like good Christians, I know of Christian witches, like, and I can sit here on this platform all day and talk about and educate people about colonization and Christianity. And there's good Christians out there. And I can't just say no, because there's entire contexts that I'm just not, anyway, I'm just ranting because that's my line, really. The line isn't about, like, I fully recognize that starseeds has been harmful in its history. I don't think it has been inherently harmful because I don't think most identities come with like a set of principles. They're just like a group of people that happen to be located in that position, or like happen to find that a way to articulate their experiences that seems to fit. So I don't think that's the same thing as like a core set of principles. Man, I don't know, my tone here is like is a lot. I'm not mad. I just feel like it's just not my place. That's my line. So again, I don't really use the term. All right, I'm about to stir the pot, and I realize I'm